Hello and welcome to the Culture edition of World Talks on TVP World, where every word matters. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guests in the studio for this exclusive interview. On September 10th, in the quaint village of Markova, a momentous event takes place as the Ulma family is said to be beatified. The ceremony, echoing the horrors of World War II and underlining the importance of family and human goodness, captures global interest, especially in these turbulent times. Joining us on TVP World to help us understand the profound significance of this day and its larger historical context is Slawomir Bardski, historian from the Institute of National Remembrance. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning and welcome. Thank you for inviting us here.
So can you first help us understand what makes this Ulma family beatification especially significant in the broader narrative of Catholic Church and the recognition of martyrs?
Okay, there is a set of certain aspects of this beatification that are very important. First of all, it's the whole family, the entire family proclaimed blessed, which is a clear statement, clear message from the Pope and from the Catholic Church to all international community that the family values are very important in today's world. And that's the testimony of Ulma family is a great example, is a role model on how to live according to the Christian values. And this Christian life, this Christian approach led them to sacrifice their lives for other people.
Right, when you look at the story, it is very significant. This family has risked everything to help these people. Given the risk and the context, what do you believe compelled the Ulma family to go out of their way to save this Jewish family during the German occupation?
Well, they were not the only one. There were thousands of similar families and Poles who were helping Jews and giving refuge to the Jews. So they seriously treated the words of the gospel, especially the parable of Good Samaritan that was underlined in the Bible of Joseph and Victoria Ulma. This parable shows us that when we see someone who is suffering, some people may think, what would be consequences for me if I help those people? But Ulma was a little different approach, was the Christian approach, which says what would be the consequences for the suffering person when I helped him. And that lead us to help, not to think about ourselves, but to think about other people and helping others.
So it is a very, very noble cause. Can you help us kind of paint a picture for us in the city of Markova during the time of the Ulma family? How might their daily lives have looked like?
They look like everyday life on the village. The Ulma family was very special, or it was unique. Joseph was a photographer. It was unusual at the times. Was a farmer who was even raising silkworms. But on the other hand, they were a family like many other families. They had 7 children, but it was not unusual at that times. Maybe it seems unusual nowadays, but then there were many families. Victoria came from a family of 13 siblings, and Joseph had 4 siblings. But this is an example of also a family that shows the holiness found in our next door neighbors. I think that's the Pope Francis' one of favorite expressions, the holiness found in our next door neighbors, which is another message from Vatican, from the Church, that we are all called to be holy. The vocation for holiness is for everybody. Marriage or priesthood is maybe not for everybody, it's for some certain people, but holiness is something available for everybody.
All right, very well said. Holiness is available for everybody, and everybody indeed, like you mentioned earlier. It's not just the Ulma family, but also a lot of Poles during that time helped shelter these Jews from persecution, and a lot of them paid the ultimate price for it. Can you give us some information, shed some light on these unsung heroes and the kind of legacy they left behind?
Well, the Institute of National Remembrance, where I work, has a variety of activities, tasks, and responsibilities. So we have The archive is the heart of our institute, where we collect, digitize all the documents and make them available. We do education, we do research, we search and identification of victims of the Second World War. And when we do research, we found out one of the topics among the topics that are subject for historical research were the Polish-Jewish relationships. And particularly the Poles saving Jews. And this showed us that there are so many other families and many other people who were, in fact, helping Jews. For example, there's a great story about Polish diplomats in Switzerland who were cooperating with Paraguayan embassy, and they were issuing fake passports for the Jews in order to take them out from Poland and save them this way.
All right, can you tell us about that Jewish-Polish relationship back in the day and help us understand what is the kind of bond that made them decide to go so far out of their way in order to help these people?
They were friends. I think friendship would be the key words in this case. It was not only a matter of peaceful coexistence or tolerance. It was a matter of friendship and cooperation. The Polish families were friends, simply friends with Jewish families, and they were also cooperating. Joseph Ulma was trading vegetables and fruits with the Jewish families, so they lived in the same area and they knew each other, and therefore it was very natural. Then when there is a threat, there is a danger, we have to help each other.
Right. It is easier said than done, though, right? When we look at a penalty that's put upon other nationals like France, the German, if they were found sheltering Jews, they might get a hefty fine or some sort of imprisonment. But in Poland, it's a different matter. I believe that if Poles were found sheltering Jews, they do face more severe prosecution, right?
Right. It was a threat, a danger. I'm sure the Ulma and like many other people were aware that they are risking their lives by giving shelter to Jewish people. But on the other hand, from the Christian perspective, we know that the life does not end with the death on this world. So they are with us spiritually. They keep living in a spiritual way. And having this in mind, maybe it's a little bit easier to understand why we can and we should risk our lives in order to save other people.
All right, and I think that is also a very good point to bring up, and that's why this beatification process is so important. I think it does help emphasize that, even if they're not with us, their deeds is going to be carried forwards. And I'm also thinking about the kind of a juxtaposition with this historic event and what's happening right now with the war in Ukraine. And the Poles once again kind of stepped up and sheltered these Ukrainian refugees into their own homes instead of like these governmental facilities, which is very unprecedented. Do you see a similarity between the times back then and now? The Polish people are once again opening up their hearts, their homes for the Ukrainians.
There is a similarity, although we are not risking our lives by giving shelter, giving refuge to the Ukrainians. But on the other hand, we know that behind Ukraine is Russia and Putin, and we never know what's going to happen, what this crazy guy can do. So yes, I think this is very important in terms of the family values. It's not only about helping other people, it's also about educating our sons and daughters, educating the new generations, how important is the hospitality, and in order to live in peace and to be a happy person.
Right, you brought up a very good point. I think people look at the heroic deeds, and of course we all admire them all the same. But when you, like I mentioned, take a step back and look at their motivations and what's really pushing them forward, it's that very important family value and kind of the holiness that you've been telling us about. And now we're talking about the beatification process. When it comes to the ceremony, what can we expect to see today?
Well, I would focus on one little thing. The day of remembrance in a liturgical calendar for Ulma family would be the day of their wedding. Usually, for the martyrs, is a day of death, as a day of remembering the case. And here, I think it's a second time in the history of the church when the day of the wedding is considered a day of remembrance. The first case was the marriage of Luigi and Maria Quattrocci that were declared blessed back in 2001 by Pope John Paul II. That was the first case of a marriage, of a beatification of a marriage together. Now we have the first case of the beatification of a family, of the whole family. I think this is not the end, it's just the start. After this beatification, we will work and we do our best to raise awareness in Poland, both in Poland as on international level, about how important are the Christian values, the family values, and how important is the education.
All right, like you mentioned, this beatification has several points that stood out. The timing of it, like you said, on their day of marriage, and also the beatification of a whole family, which I understand is rare or has not occurred before. But is it like the first of its kind?
It's the first of its kind, and it also refers to the very ancient practice, ancient Christian practice, where whenever the parents became Christians, whenever the parents converted onto Christianity, the whole family was baptized, even the newborn children. Here we have a case where there is this child was about to be born, and he was baptized by blood. He was baptized of blood, how the church put it. So he didn't need to be baptized by water. And I think this is also taking us back to the first ages of the Christian church, when the whole church was united and whole families were baptized, and also during the persecutions there were cases that the whole families were killed.
Right. And last but not least, very briefly, at the ceremony today and with this all event going on, if there's a message for everyone to take away from the beatification of the Ulma family, what would that be?
The message would be you could live a happy life living in a marriage, in a family, and if you live according to the Christian values, you'll never be left alone.
Right, never be left alone. Very well said. Thank you so much for your input and insight, and help us understand this more. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And with that, we conclude this edition of World Talks. But for more news update and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.